Okay, part 2, making the dough. Here's what I've already done. I have taken my warm milk and poured it into my mixing bowl. When I say warm, what does that mean? Okay, there's one test that never fails. It is the clean finger test. So I warmed mine up in the microwave about 30 seconds. You really can't tell in that short amount of time by the outside of the container how warm what's inside is. So I just dip my finger in there. It should feel like just barely over your body temperature, like body temperature or like almost over. If you find yourself asking, I wonder if this is still too hot, it probably is. Too hot will kill the yeast. You don't want to do that. So aim for about body temperature and you'll be golden. So I put that in my bowl and then I put the yeast in there and I've just given it a gentle stir. You just want to make sure all that yeast is moistened by the milk and kind of try to knock out any big clumps because that just means it's dry on the inside. And then I just let that chill out for 3 to 5 minutes so that that yeast can start creating some action with that milk. You might see some little bubbles coming up. That means that this yeast is becoming activated. If you are using one of the instant yeasts, instant, quick rise, or rapid rise, you can skip this step. This is what makes it instant. You don't have to bloom the yeast before you start using it. So you can just put both of those things in the bowl and start adding everything right off. You don't have to wait those few minutes to activate it. It's the only difference. You can probably even use cold milk too, but it doesn't hurt to warm it up. Okay, so we've got that in there. It's been there for a few minutes. Let's start adding some other ingredients. So we're going to pop this up and hopefully you'll be able to hear me while this is running. We're going to first add our sugar and just let that mix it around a little bit. We're going to add our eggs now. And our butter. It's okay to shut off the mixer while you're adding things so you don't make an enormous mess. I'm just going to turn this up a little bit to break up those egg yolks. Adding the whiskey now, or vanilla if you're using vanilla. If you want to go half and half and use half whiskey, half vanilla, no reason not to. Sounds yummy to me. Okay, now we're going to start adding the flour. For that, you definitely don't want to do it while it's moving, and you probably want to pop this down a little bit too. I forgot to bring an extra spoon over here, so I'm just going to add it this way. You don't want to add it all at one time because it will make a mess. So add maybe 1 or 2 cups and turn the speed on low first to get that incorporated. Once again, if you're doing this in the bowl and mixing it by hand, same deal. You might want to add it all at once. Just be, and then just be careful to make sure you don't go over the sides of the bowl with it. But the mixer will send flour flying all over the kitchen if you add too much at once or if you turn it on too high of a speed. Now I'm usually making a batch twice this big, so I'm much more careful about flour going flying out of it because the capacity is more taxed at that point. try to dump all that in there. Okay. Okay, when I grabbed a spatula, just so you could scrape down the edges here for any dry flour that hasn't really been mixed in yet. Okay, now we're gonna add our last two things. We're gonna add salt and lemon zest. Get it all in there because it's yummy. Okay, pop that back up. And now we're kneading the dough. So we're just gonna let it go for a few minutes. You'll see it'll start developing into a more cohesive ball. If you're using a mixer and you find it's really sticking to the edge, this is where that tablespoon of oil comes in. If you find it's sticking, even after it's been going a few turns, or for maybe like a minute, and it's sticking to the edges, you can just drizzle some of that vegetable oil or canola oil, whatever kind of flavorless oil you have down the side. That'll help kind of bring it together and make it not stick to the surface. But you know, I'm not having that issue today. So I'm just gonna let this run for a couple minutes. Make sure it doesn't shake right off your counter. By the way, if you're using bread flour instead of all-purpose flour at this point, you're not going to want to let this run this long. You're going to want to take it out and start kneading it by hand right off, because this is where it's developing that gluten. Okay, this is looking pretty good. So let's take this out. I'm sorry, you probably have a belly shot of me right now, but this is really weird for me to be doing this sitting down, but okay, I'll give it a whirl. So you're just gonna put a little bit of flour on your counter and spread that out. You don't want any big chunks, you just don't want the dough to stick. I'm gonna roll these up a little bit. And it is going to be a pretty sticky dough, as you can see, right? I do have a little bit stuck to the bottom here now, but that's okay. I'll just power that right off. Okay. It would probably be a good idea to get your hands a little floury too, so the dough doesn't completely stick. And you can use your spatula to scrape up anything that might still be stuck in here. If you use the oil, you really shouldn't have much of a problem with this. Okay, and then we're just going to slowly, kind of gently peel it right off of that hook so we're not wasting anything. And that's pretty good. You could see it came out fairly easily. We've got most of it. Okay. So now we're going to knead it. You'll notice when you look at it, it should be pretty smooth looking, but you might still see like some little craters and bumps that just show it's not 100% kneaded together. I like to do the end by hand. I think it just works a little bit better, and that way I don't worry about it being overworked and getting to be gummy. So make sure you have enough flour here on your surface so it's not going to stick. Maybe a little flour here on top and on your hands. And you're just going to press it down, fold it towards yourself, and then push it away. And then do a quarter turn, so the part that you folded this way last time is folding towards the side. And then fold it and push it. And keep rotating, folding, and pushing. if you feel like the dough is getting sticky again, like it's starting to stick to your hands or stick to the counter, just come through and give it another little dust and keep going. You want to make sure, you want to try not to add too much flour here because it will just end up making your dough heavier. So you want to use as much as you need, but you don't want to overdo it either. You don't want to do too much. So, start small. And if you think you need more because it's really sticky, you can always add more. But once it's in there, you can't take it out. I know this is fascinating to watch, really. This is great for deltoid development, especially when you're sitting. Oh my gosh. When you're standing, it's not so bad. When you're standing, you can kind of just get your body weight behind it. It's way easier to push it. And you are just going to keep doing this until you feel like your dough is pretty smooth and no longer sticky. So I think I need to have one more series in me. It's getting pretty close. And nobody can really tell you the right time for this, because it's going to depend on a lot of things, like the ingredients that you've used, the different brand, the water content in your butter, how big your eggs are, the humidity in your house. So it's all going to play a role. So if you find that yours is already smooth and not sticky, and you don't know why I'm kneading for so long, that's cool, you're done. If you find that you need to knead a little bit longer than I am, that's okay too. Okay, so this is pretty good now. I mean, it's not perfectly smooth, but with Paska, I want this dough to be tender. So if if you have some little craters or bumps in here, it's okay. We're just going to run with it because I don't want that gluten to develop too much. So I'm going to take a big bowl, and this particular bowl used to be my baba's, so I figure, it's good luck for me to make Paska with this bowl. I put a little drizzle of oil in there. We're going to form this dough. So what I'm doing, do you see how I'm just like squishing it towards the back and I'm stretching the top here, the part that's facing me, see, and rolling it onto the back. And I'm trying to create this kind of ball shape on the top that then just gets folded over into this hole on the back. So I'm going to take the top of that, put it in the bowl, kind of swirl it around in that oil so it gets glossy, and then flip it over so that side is up and plop the rest down. This just helps the dough keep it from drying out. Then you're going to cover it up with a little bit of plastic wrap. If you don't have plastic wrap, you can take a dampened, clean dish towel and pop that over the top. You just want to keep it from drying out. I tend to do both. I don't know why. I don't know if it makes any difference. But that way I just figure it keeps all the moisture in. It has a little extra moisture on top. Because now what you're going to want to do is put it in a warm place and give it about an hour to rise. I don't know about you. Yesterday I had a lot of warm places in this house. Today I've got very few. So what I do when it's not warm enough outside to put it like in a warm window or something like that, I turn on the oven for maybe a minute. I want to get the temperature in there to about 95 to 98 degrees, something like that. But generally I find if I just turn it on for a minute, it's fine, it warms it up. It's warmer than room temperature. You wouldn't want to sit in there, but yeast loves it. And then I turn the oven off because you don't want it to get any hotter than that. And I'll just put this bowl in the oven for about an hour and let it rise. And after you do that, come back for part 3.